Olga Pilieva of Russia's in second position at the moment. Wonder how she's feeling. She had the yellow bib at the start of the Oberhof meet. She's now down in fourth position in the World Cup standings, 29 points off the lead. So it wasn't a particularly good week, although, to be honest, her results weren't that bad. She finished in 23rd and 22nd, still getting points, but losing huge ground to Uschi Diesel in particular, who is now the new World Cup leader. And in fact, that's the second time she's worn yellow for this season. And of course, that elusive title, the Crystal Globe for the overall, could be coming her way.
Well, it's not all going Uschi's way this time. Last week we saw her have a 10-15 metre lead at this stage in the race, but there's still 3 teams staying with her. The pace really is punishing, though. This is very hard skiing.
This, Mike, of course, the venue for the British Championships this year.
Indeed, British Championships have been based here for many years, starting on the 22nd of January. The first race, right the way through until the 3rd of February, so many days of racing. And this is home to many teams in the summer months, including the British biathletes. Italians come up here and use this venue, as do the Swedes. They come down here, of course, under Wolfgang Pichler's guidance. So many of these biathletes familiar with the tracks in the summer months as well. Yeah, the races here at the British Champs. There's a 15-kilometre classic, there's followed by the 4x10 2 days later, then a 20-kilometre biathlon, 10-kilometre sprint, 12.5-kilometre pursuit, the relay biathlon, and then the military patrol race last. So a very busy few days of racing.
And the field made up mostly by military personnel, but the civilians allowed to enter as well.
Absolutely, there's quite a number of civilians coming along, and for the first time a biathlon club coming over from Scotland to take part.
It's not your club by any chance, is it?
Well, it's growing in energy, and many more people subscribing to it, so maybe one day we'll have a top-class British team here. But no women, sadly, only 2 women in the British team on site, so they can't enter in the relay team.
So attention back to the race as we approach the range for the first time. The first 2-kilometre loop completed. Seems a long way, but just look at that. What a brilliant stand they've developed here. And there will be a huge response to every hit and also to every miss. It's an unnerving occasion for anyone standing down at the range, let alone those who are trying to hit the targets. So Olga Pilieva in lane 1 for Russia, Diesel lane 2 for Germany, Sjöholm for Norway, Grigorin, the Slovenian, in lane 4, Bulgaria with Filipova, and the Italians with Katja Haller in lane 6. The Chinese with Xingyang Liu. Mistakes from Germany and Russia, a chance for Norway, just as I say it, making mistakes. And, well, we have seen considerably better shooting than this season. Olga Pilieva with the best score so far on that first round, but no one clear as yet. A chance for the Bulgarians to get them all down with Filipova. She has cleared the target. She'll get out very quickly indeed. The Ukrainians going well. A clear shoot from Yakovleva down in lane 9. Way out of the picture, but Yakovleva back on her skis, heading out of the stadium, should come through in the top 2 or 3 positions. Bulgaria top, Ukraine second, Russia third with Olga Pilieva, the Czech Republic fourth, Slovenia 5, the top 5 only separated by the same number of seconds, and Belarus down in 6th. Norway 13 seconds down. It's such a familiar story now. They lose ground in the first half of the relay, and then they make it up in the closing 2 legs. Well, that is unusual. For France, someone of Florence Bavrel's experience really shouldn't be going down, but maybe that's got something to do with the ice that you were talking about on the course, Mike.
She could not get her edges in. This was earlier in the race, about 1 kilometre after the mass start. The skis just totally slipped under her. Extraordinary, Patrick. Only 10 teams have had the perfect shoot, so 5 have been on the penalty loop, and that really is due to the lack of light. It does make it very different.
But having said that, all the Norwegians and in fact all the Scandinavian teams train in the evening simply because they don't have the daylight. Well, we'll discuss this afterwards. We're going to take a quick break. The first shoot completed there as well, and the Ukraine having a very good run indeed. But it will all change on this second loop as the pace picks up. Good to see some of the lower numbers coming through. The Norwegians still there in contention, but Linda Sjöholm has had to work very, very hard to get back on terms. She was 13 seconds down, now she's about 13 metres behind the leaders. Sjöholm, who comes from the west coast of Norway, I believe, Mike, just south of Stavanger. It's not the usual place for their top skiers to come from, but she's doing pretty well.
She really is, yes. There's a very good club down there in the southern part of Norway, even though, as you say, serious lack of snow down there, especially this year. But it proves that you can still create top biathletes, even when there is lack of snow.
So Diesel back to control the front and control the pace, trying to hurt the others. As Mike said on the first leg, it's her tactic. She is that much stronger than anyone else, and she trains to come into the range a little bit faster than others, and this is where the mistake is made by the youngsters, and maybe you can include Sjöholm in this, trying to follow Diesel. It just hurts too much, and then the shooting really is off standard. And looking through the results of the first shoot, Mike, in the prone, we thought, or the caption said, a number were on the penalty loop. In fact, it's been corrected. Only 5 teams, though, clear.
That's 5 teams without using spare rounds. Yes, that's with the wind flags being very calm this evening, that's a true reflection. I did think, and if there are mistakes, it is more difficult shooting when you have less sight picture. Your eyes can't quite pick up the definition between the black target and the lack of light surrounding the sights. But look at Ushi Diesel. She left the range 18 seconds behind the Russian Pilieva, and she's only, what, 1 or 2 seconds behind her now. That is an incredible ski speed, but will it make her suffer in the standing in just, what, 30 seconds time?
It may well do. We'll see. Pilieva looking fairly steady. Linda Sjöholm never looks that comfortable, but she's tall, quite a strong build. She's ticking over nicely. The Slovenians, I should say, going very well once again. Are they going to get their second successive podium finish? We'll have to wait and see. Belarus, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Ukraine, all the top names are still in there. Pilieva, that's where Florence Bavrel had the problems, and you can see how she started too narrow. She needed to start wider and then cut the corners. She needed to pick the racing line, basically.
Linda's down, Linda Sjöholm. The ice is really catching a lot of these athletes out.
Well, in skiing terms, that wasn't a bad place to fall, but she's unsettled herself just before coming in for this shoot, and I'm sure it threw the pulse rate up a few beats per minute. So we've got to watch Ushi, because we think she may well have been skiing too fast. Watch out for Linda Sjöholm's second shoot. She's just taken that fall, no doubt slightly distracted by that. Pilieva has had the cleanest run so far, and she's back in lane 1. Diesel, lane 2. Sjöholm down in 3. Each cheer corresponding to a hit from Ushi Diesel. It's slow and deliberate. Sjöholm, fantastic stuff, not distracted at all. 5 out of 5. She's going to come out first now. Pilieva, 1 shot to go. She's thrown it wide. That really is a big mistake. And the gap opening at the front of the field. Diesel with 1 more target still to go down. That's good. That's very good indeed. The pressure was on, because there is so much expectation on the shoulders of Ushi Diesel nowadays, and she's limited the damage. How far behind is she? 15, 16, 17 seconds. 16 seconds, Mike. How close is she going to get on this last 2Ks?
Well, I honestly think she will not only get close, but I think she will pass Linda Sjöholm before she comes in to hand over, because just see on Ushi's face there, she really is angry again that she missed 1 shot. She missed 3 the first time in, and 1 spare round this time.
Good to see the Chinese still in contention. The Bulgarian team on the penalty loop at the moment, and plenty of Norwegians down supporting their nation, and why not? They're being so successful this year. Pilieva totally focused, had a few problems with that second shoot, lost some ground, but is back on the shoulder of Uschi Diesel, and there's no better shoulder to be perched on if you're making a chase for the lead.
Well, I think Pilieva is fortunate here to have come out at the same time as Uschi, because she will be dragged on by Uschi Diesel's speed.
Norway, Germany, Russia at the moment. First leg now. Pretty uneventful so far, no major breaks. Norway will be delighted to be in front of the rest of the field, and I think giving them a hard time at the beginning of the race. It seems that they've turned things around. Linda Sjöholm once again proving very reliable. She'll be handing over to Tora Berger, the 23-year-old from Trondheim, who will be looking forward to her run here. And Ishtad taking the third leg, who comes in for Flatland, who, well, she had a great first shoot in Overhoff, but Flatland ended up doing 3 penalties in the stand, and I don't think there was any way the Norwegians were going to risk running the youngster again. So Ishtad is back, and Liv Greta Poiré still taking the last leg, despite the fact that she is way, way off her best form at the moment.
Pilieva is doing so well to stay with Uschi Diesel's rocket pace. I think Uschi is going to catch Sjöholm. Linda seemed to save a little bit for this last 2 kilometres. And of course there's China and Lu, determined to try and hand over in the top 3.
Well, the key with this first leg, really, Mike, if your name isn't Uschi Diesel, the key is to stay at the front of the field, or to stay in touch, by which I mean within 15-20 seconds of the leaders, because you've still got a chance. Diesel knows she's got the ability to break away. She's failed to do so on this occasion, but to see the 3 top teams within 20 seconds of each other, that is just what we wanted. And it goes on to the second leg. Begali versus Apel versus Berger. Which way is that going to go?
Well, I think local Apel will be inspired. She does tend to perform slightly better here. So I would put my favoured choice as Germany. But what's impressing me again today, just come into the camera there, was Taya Grigorin for Slovenia, proving once again that they are real contenders. Only 19 seconds behind after the shooting, after the stand shoot. Now can Uschi close this gap? Down to about 4 seconds again, but Linda really has found another kick of energy.
Yeah, she's doing pretty well. She accelerated over the top of the last hill, 3.7 seconds. It's going to be very, very tight. Pilieva has been dragged all the way. Xinglang Lu, look at this, wearing bib number 7, an outstanding ski from her. She is still on terms with the leaders, but the Slovenians delighted. They're down in 5th place at the moment, but should any of the leading teams make a mistake, and one of them will, I can guarantee that at some stage in this relay. Maybe a fall, more likely to be missed targets. And Sjöholm has some clean snow, accelerated down the hills. Looks as if the Norwegians have got the wax and the ski preparation right again. A factor that brought them a lot of success last week.
Yes, so important, the technicians, and as usual, the technicians have been out for hours, in fact the previous 2 days as well, just getting a feel for the snow.
So away goes Tora Berger for Norway. 20 minutes exactly for the first leg, so we're looking at a time of 1 hour 20 in total. Germany in second, 6 seconds down. It was a good burst by Sjöholm over the last 150 metres. Russia in third, and Anna Begali is back in for Makarova, who was in the squad in Oberhof. So we'll have to see how she's getting on. She's been inconsistent this year, but she did get a 4th and a 5th in the individual races in Oberhof. So I think her confidence starting to rise again. Begali wearing bib 1 in the Russian colours.
Well, certainly out of all these big names you mentioned, this is a new situation for Tora Berger. There we see her just getting handed over to. She has not led a World Cup, so I'm just wondering, 23 years old, she has been in a few World Cups, so she knows the feel for the competition, but does she know the feel for leading the relay in a World Cup.
Well, I think we ought to take into consideration Andrea Marley as well, who's taking the second leg for Slovenia. You can see there they were down in 5th position at the exchange, but Marley, pretty class act when she's on form. Come in for Koblar, who raced in Oberhof. And then the Bulgarians, well, they've run one of their 2 best biathletes, and now they've got Nina Kadeva on the course. The Italians with Sasha Santa, the Chinese with Ying Chao Kong. The Chinese putting their best first, and their second best, Yuxia Hu, down in 4th position. But Kong looked pretty useful a week ago in the relay in Oberhof, so don't rule her out. Just over a minute behind the fastest time on her leg, but if she can tidy up the shooting a little, she may well find herself keeping in contact with the leaders.
Just looking at this, Patrick, Tora Berger is really setting an unbelievably fast pace. Look at her tempo here. She really has upped her game, and that's the responsibility, leading your country. But Katrine Apple has other ideas here, I think. Got it down to 1.8 seconds, and at the changeover it was 6 seconds.
So Apple working hard. Didn't help Uschi Diesel at all for the shooting. It was interesting how good Scherholm was after that fall, Mike. And actually in Oberhof we saw the same. A couple of skiers falling, but it didn't distract them. In particular, Frode Andersen, who fell in the sprint event and then shot clear, which is a highly unusual occurrence. But he achieved that, and somehow we thought, well, maybe the fall took their mind off the shoot and the situation.
Yes, it can do that. All of a sudden you have a new situation. You don't plan to fall, you never plan to fall, and all of a sudden you've dealt with this horrible situation, and you've had to use a different kind of focusing to get back up, to get back into the race, get back into your stride, and maybe that does absorb the mind, taking it away from worrying about shooting. Tora Berger really is not wanting to let anybody past. This is a tough pace, Patrick. They really are sprinting round this first 2 kilometres.
Now a little climb before they descend into the range area, and it's the Russians who have taken the lead. Anna Begali looking very, very fresh. That's good skiing from Begali, but now it's all about recovery. They've reached the top of the hill. They've now got to think about bringing the breathing rate and the pulse rate down to enable them to shoot. Slight corner down the bottom of this downhill. Doesn't look much on the television screen, but I can assure you that it's a very fast bit of skiing. Bear in mind that these skis don't have any metal edges at all, just a P-Tex base. So controlling your line in icy conditions, virtually impossible.
Oh, it looks to me like Begali, although she really did work over the top of the hill, does look like she has very good skis.
I think she's kept the work rate up as well. Berger coming back after a slightly more conservative attack down the hill.
But if any of the 3 have slower skis, it's definitely Katrine Apple.
In the slipstream and working, so I think you're absolutely spot on there, but I would argue that the Norwegian skis aren't too bad. We saw evidence that Scherholms were running well. Berger looking a little tired, do you think, Mike? The stride starting to shorten there.
Indeed, and look at the twisting in the upper body as well, the muscle control in the stomach. Not quite the same, but she will fight.
I think this little battle going on at the front of the field here in Rupollding is creating an opportunity for the likes of Slovenia and China, Slovakia and Ukraine in the chasing group. We've seen so many times that a ski race can ruin your chances in the range. Tora Berger doesn't look too steady there, but she survived that corner. It is Anna Begali who's going to come in first. Katrine Apel of Germany, sensible ski upfield from her, and Tora Berger, who I think really has just been working flat out to stay in touch. So, fascinating situation. The crowd, well, 99.9% of them supporting Katrine Arpel, and the cheers or the groans will respond to her shots. Arpel in lane 2, Begali nearest the camera in 1, and on the far side, Tora Berger, 23-year-old from Norway. Too quick to get that first one away.
Berger is really suffering from the pace she set.
Good shooting from Anna Begali. That is so impressive. No panic at all. Wasn't fazed by the fact that Berger and Arpel both got shots off very quickly. She took her time, and believe it or not, she is the first to leave. Now, Tora Berger must get this one down. This is essential.
Problems there, feeding the round into the chamber. Now, this gives China a chance. Slovenia and Slovakia a chance to catch up. Good comeback there for Tora Berger.
I think that may be good news for the Norwegians, Mike, because she's on her own now, can ski her own race rather than get tangled up with the likes of Arpel and Begali at the front of the field. The Slovakians, very good shots, and they've done it once again. They go clear on their first prone shoot on this second leg, and Halinarova can be delighted with that. That's a good performance. Marinova, Halinarova, Slezakova and Mihokova, the 4 runners in the Slovakian team. Still only 38 seconds separating the top 4, but the top 3 seeds now pulling away from the rest of the field, and the crowd
well, all 20,000 spectators feel a miss. Great chance to see the target. And the lying down, it's just that inner circle, that's the only part that scores as a hit.
And Begali's shots all seem to be going low and slightly left. except for the last one, which would have knocked the 10 down. Good shot from Anna Begali. She scores 5 out of 5 and has the lead. Germany in second, Norway chasing hard in.
Welcome back to Rupollding with Russia leading, followed only 7.9 seconds by Germany, and Norway in third, 26 seconds behind.
Slovakians 52 seconds behind. In distance terms, that is about 300 meters off the lead, maybe even 350 the speed they're going tonight, covering a kilometre in under 3 minutes, which is just a little bit quicker than your average cross-country runner would achieve. But you also have to bear in mind that the hills here are considerably more than you'd encounter on a normal cross-country race, but then I guess you have the advantage of going down them a whole lot quicker without using any energy, or with using minimal energy.
But look at the steepness of these hills. Again, the camera foreshortens it, makes it look easier. This is a very steep climb. You really do feel this, especially after the work on the flat. Your legs are fatigued as you hit this steep hill. But I'll tell you what, Anna Begali really is coming into form. She pushed the pace severely into the prone shooting, and she absolutely did brilliantly. No spare rounds.
Begali from Murmansk, the Russian team from all over the place, like Zeva from Moscow, a few from Krasnoyarsk, all over the place. Siberia producing a lot of their top skiers, and that's part of their problem, is they can have world-class skiers out there, but the coaches don't know about them, the national coaches that is, and just bringing them together, getting them together to train, giving them all the benefit of the top coaches, almost impossible.
It is, it's such a vast country, but well, the great thing about Russia is they do love their biathlon. The clubs have an energy all of their own, and dedicated coaching staff who try to pick up on all the latest techniques and coaching skills.
So compare the styles here. You can see Begali leading with that left arm, Arpel in the background leading with the right. No one switching as yet. Very few skiers are able to do that and feel comfortable leading with both sides. Arpel very, very strong. Typically German, really, and that comes from doing a lot of training down here in Rupollding, where the hills are short and steep. You can get away with being a power merchant. On the Scandinavian terrain, it's better to be a floater like Bjorndalen and Poiré.
Yes, smooth and efficient action. Does save energy. There's nothing separating these two, Bogali and Apple. Well, there's 0.4 of a second since the stand shoot.
She's still looking very comfortable, Mike. Been impressed with her ski so far, but she could undo all the good work should she make a mess of this second shoot. Immense pressure now on Anna Bogali, back in the team, back in favour after two good individual races in Oberhof. Now, just savour the occasion. This is what all the biathletes enjoy, and a good percentage of this crowd taking the whole week off to watch the action here down in the south of Bavaria. Russia versus Germany at the front. Norway not too far behind. Well, you can't fault Bogali there. 10 out of 10 today, and she is the first person to make a significant break. And Germany with Arpel, when that first miss goes down, you start to get nervous. By the time you've missed three, Mike, you're petrified of what the crowd are going to do to you next time you come around.
There's so much pressure when you have 3 spare rounds and 3 targets to hit. Remember, if this one is missed, it's a 150-metre penalty. Pressure is immense. She coped so well with that pressure.
Berger gets her 5th one down, so only one mistake from Berger, and she's closed that gap on the Germans. Slight mistake as she comes out. What was she picking up there? Was that her magazine?
Oh, that was her magazine. How did she drop that?
I'm not quite sure how that released. Maybe she just knocked the trigger that let it out, but she's done well to pick it up and spot it. Well, let's hope the Norwegians don't get disqualified again. The men disqualified in Oberhof. 26 seconds between the leading two as we approach the halfway stage of this women's 4x5. Good to see that the Chinese are still on the chase.
Well, the Chinese team, they've played their strongest cards first in order really of their strength in the World Cup ranking and in the strength of shooting. So let's hope the young, less experienced ones can keep them up there in 4th, maybe take them up to 3rd. Well done there for Slovakia. Still well and truly in the hunt. Slovenia and Mali. 2 spare rounds, 1 target left. She's panicking just a little bit. Perfect. That was a very quick shot from when the rifle stabilized.
Tora Berger, I think she deserves a pat on the back after that performance. Now this is where she picked it. Now there is a possibility that it wasn't her magazine at all. If it was a magazine, I'm afraid from where we are we can't quite make out what it was that she picked up, but we suspect it was a magazine. Let's hope it was hers and not that of Katrine Arpel, who was on that second line. Through go the leading 3 teams, and you can see that Germany only with a narrow lead over the Norwegians. I think the crowd will be well, fairly confident that Germany can break away on leg number 3, because Martina Glagau will be up against Gromart Ishtad Christiansen of Norway, and Glagau, when she's on form, certainly the better of those two, but her confidence not that high after a couple of weeks where she's been below par. The Russians, on the other hand, well, they bring in experience for leg number 3. It's Svetlana Ishmaradova, who was absolutely superb at the beginning of the season, faded a little in Oslo, and is slowly coming back to form, but she's the sort of woman who can cope with the pressure of the relay occasion. So I suspect that the Russians may make a break even further in leg 3, and then it will be down to Olga Zaitseva to see if she can hold on. Last leg runners for the leading 3 teams: Zaitseva for Russia, Wilhelm, the Olympic sprint champion for Germany, and then Liv Greta Poiré of Norway. Now, what do you make of Liv Greta's form?
Her form has been a little bit, remember before Christmas she managed to put the ghosts to rest and won that World Cup up in Östersund, but her form has been inconsistent, and you really need the confidence to place yourself, if you're as fast as Liv Greta, in the top 5 each race. That hasn't been happening, so there's definitely a flaw in her positioning, in her confidence on the range, and there lies her problem. Berger's really has done well here, only 35 seconds behind the Russians, so she's definitely kept the Norwegians well and truly in this race.
Skiing very well indeed. There's Norway's third leg runner. Watching the screen very intensely, wanting to know exactly what she's got to cope with. A good bit of psychological preparation going on from Ishtad Kristiansen, and she'll be starting in third unless something drastic happens to Katrine Apel in the closing stages. It's a painfully steep climb, this one. You can see from the cameraman standing on the side of the course just how steep it is. The actual picture itself flattens it out, but it would certainly have my pulse up around 200. Just one ski up it, let alone 3.
Well, Tora Berger, so impressive. Remember, she looked tired on that first and second loop, but she's actually having the fastest ski time on the final 2 kilometers.
So in comes Anna Begali of Russia, who has put in the fastest leg of the day so far. 10 out of 10 in the range, no mistakes whatsoever. That was the key to Begali's success, and she's given Russia a significant lead here. Remember, each round missed, each shot missed incurs a penalty of around 12 to 13 seconds for that manually loaded round. No one from the leading 3 teams has been on the penalty loop as yet, but 29 seconds, at least 2 shots advantage for Russia at the moment, and Norway, well, almost exactly the same as Germany, so the Norwegians will be delighted with that. I thought for a moment that the Germans had stopped there with Martina Glagau, but it was in fact Katrine Apel just pulling off to the side after her effort. Just about 30 seconds separating the top 3. No one else getting a look in at the moment, but Slovakia and the Chinese. Mike, what about the other teams? Ukraine?
Well, looking further back, yes, Ukraine, they're down in 11th, 2 minutes 43 seconds behind, having been on the penalty loop. I expected more from them today. I also thought Belarus would go well today. They're not out of it in 8th place, but 2 minutes 5 is an awful long way to pick up.
And the Slovakian team have done well. No penalty loops for them. They've only missed 3 targets out of the 25 so far. And in fact, they have the second best shooting score to the team in front, Russia. So another good performance from Slovakia. And Slovenia, who got their first ever podium finish in Oberhof, down in 6th place. 6 misses so far today, but only 154 off the pace of the leaders. So they're not out of a chance of finishing in the top 3 or 4.
And there's the fatigue you feel at the end. Only 6 kilometers, but it's a huge amount of physical energy expended during that 6 kilometers.
Svetlana Ishmaradova well away on the course as the Slovenians go through. In 6th place, Poland having a good run, down in 7th. We haven't mentioned the Poles so far today. Palka, and it's Magdalena Guidon who's just finished that second leg. Outstanding run, she's an excellent shot. But Ponikuya taking leg 3, Griswa taking leg 4. I think the Poles may drop out of the top 7 or 8 now, but they've done well to keep themselves within 3 minutes of the leaders at this stage. Through the 800-meter mark for this first lap, and the gap is starting to shrink, Mike. Very good ski so far from Ishtad, who's got onto the shoulder of Glagau. I think that's a sensible tactic, but she's just got to be careful she doesn't overdo it.
Absolutely right with the skis. Look at the glide factor there. She did. Ishtad had slight advantage of drafting, but easily passed Martina Glagau.
I'll tell you one man who won't be happy with that. Martin Glagau, Martina's father, who waxes her skis and is generally regarded as the waxing guru on the World Cup circuit, but he will not have been a happy man to see that.
we'll have to wait to see how it pans out. In his defence, maybe as this 6 kilometres progresses, Martina's skis will be level throughout the whole race. And that does make a difference. If your skis taper off as each kilometre goes by, it's a negative.
Well, that's a very interesting fact, because that's what makes the ski testing so difficult. You may have a pair that are going very well when you test them prior to the race, but after 4 or 5 kilometres, if they get dirty quickly, then they're next to useless. Whereas a pair that might have been a little slower initially, that have some substance on them that keeps the dirt away, and they keep gliding well, they're the ones that you want to be on. But how do you tell?
Well, that's the wax. Again, praise to the wax technicians. They really are going out there and putting in 20, 25 kilometres and checking, let's say, every 2-3 kilometres to see how the wax is reacting over the distance. And it's quite amazing how much, in terms of testing, these teams, the technicians, are putting in. It really is impressive.
Don't you think it's about time they invented a snow belt, like a conveyor belt, one of these treadmills with snow, and you just put the skis on and leave it and see what the resistance is after 20 minutes of running?
Do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if somebody's out there having already achieved that. There we are, another example. Martina's skis are not bad at all. It can be determined by the energy you carry over the top of the hill.
And also the slipstream effect, because Istad, very much bigger, puts up quite a big windshield for Martina Glago, who's a very delicate figure. And it always amazes me that her size isn't a disadvantage with the rifle having to be carried, but she's copes with it pretty well. And those two are going to have a good battle. Now, Mike, this brings another factor into consideration. What is it like in a relay, in a competitive situation? So take yourself back to, say, the British Championships, where you're up the front of the field, just about to win a race, but you come in next door to the competition. How aware are you of their performance on the range?
When you're inexperienced, or when you let it bother you, you really do feel that presence. As you say, your main rival, your main contender standing beside you. It's very difficult not to be aware of what's going on. You hear a bang, you maybe look at the other person's targets. Very dangerous to do that. I used to try and totally, and I know Martina Glago does this, totally focus on yourself, at your own thoughts, your own target, and trying to cut out all the noise around you. Can't believe Istad Christiansen is taking this corner so delicately. She's lost 4 seconds there.
But she stayed on her feet, so maybe that was a bit of a gamble that she took. She is still standing, still in contention. A fall could possibly have damaged the rifle, but it's unlike the Norwegians to be unstable on the downhills. But perhaps the greatest cross-country skier of all time, Bjorn Dali, the one section he didn't like was the sharp corners on the downhill. Now, the Russians with Svetlana Ishmaratova. Their shooting has been fantastic so far. Well, that's a depressing sight for Germany and Norway. They must have made a note of that. They will have heard the chinks as the targets have gone down. And Russia come out in first spot, extending their lead almost certainly, unless Glago can switch her rifle into automatic.
Martina is aware she has to shoot fast, so is Istad.
Anything you can do, I can do as well. And the Germans and Norwegians, well, they limit the damage done by Svetlana Ishmaratova. Excellent skiing, and the same pair come out together. It's Glago in front. I guess they'll change at the first downhill, and then they'll change again at the second downhill.
That was impressive. All three of these leaders, incredibly impressive shooting. No spare rounds, quite fast shooting, hitting 5 targets, 5 shots.
Now, just to come back to that situation we were talking about before, Mike, you don't think that either Martina Glago, who we see on the screen, or Norway's Istad were aware of what was going on next door?
It's difficult not to be, so it is in the back of your mind, but you're still trying totally to only concentrate on what you do and what you do best. There is an awareness, but when you let that come into your thinking, that's when the problems begin. You're worried about someone else, not yourself.
So it's a case of switch off from any external factors. Now, China having problems for the first time today. Zhu Dong has used up, well, they were slow manual reload, so she's lost at least 25, maybe even 30 seconds with those two misses on the leading three teams, who all went clear on that first prone. Glago comes from Seefeld originally, not so far from here, maybe over the hills towards Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and right on the Austrian border. Beautiful location, not really well known for its biathlon. Now here's a problem.
Well, although it looks like a very fancy piece of equipment, it was letting Zhu Dong down.
I wonder whether we'll see them disappear. Only the Chinese team using those little imitation wheels to store the spare rounds. These are the rounds of the Russian team, with Svetlana Ishmaratova and her last one bang in the middle, but the rest low and left again.
It certainly did appear that lack of light it has become darker since the beginning of the race, and they zeroed when it was much lighter, so that is why the rounds were a little bit low.
16 seconds only the lead for Russia. Good work from Norway and Germany here, and Ishtat starting to pull away from Martina Glago. That's an unusual situation. Well, I hope you've got the next 25-30 minutes spare, because this looks as though it's going to be the best relay of the season so far. Russia leading, and they'll be handing over to Olga Zaitseva on the last leg. Wilhelm for Germany, Liv Greta Poiré, three of the biggest names in biathlon. Zaitseva is the woman on form and very well positioned in the World Cup standings, currently third. Kari Wilhelm, when she's good, she's brilliant. And then Liv Greta Poiré, well, we don't need to say anything about her. 4 gold medals at the World Championships last year. By this time last season, Mike, Liv Greta Poiré had 4 wins, 9 podium finishes, and everyone was saying the World Cup's in the bag.
Indeed they were, and by the end of the season it was, but it's going to be some amazing battle. This is still an ongoing fight here to see who can close the gaps or not make mistakes in the standing. And then we're certainly going to be entertained on the last leg, the last athletes going for each team. But remember, for Germany, Kati Wilhelm last week used 5 of her 6 extra rounds, so she really did take herself to the limit of nearly going on that penalty loop, and that does make a difference. Only 23 seconds separating the first 3, so one penalty loop changes all that, as does the spare rounds. Remember, 10-11 seconds it takes to hand feed, push the spare round into the chamber, bolt forward, reposition and squeeze the trigger. So this race really can change.
Well, a little statistics for the anoraks out there. The fact that not that it means much, but just looking down their recent standing performances, Mike, Ishmaratova the best with 81%, Glago only 78% in recent competitions in the standing position, and the Norwegian Ishtat down in 73. Quite a difference between the three of them. Would that be making you nervous if you were sitting in Oslo right now watching this?
Quite. Well, if people hear that, they think, oh well, that's how it's going to pan out, but you never can tell with a relay. The statistics are taking over all the races, and sometimes you do see this so often. When you give an athlete 3 spare rounds, it takes that self-pressure away just a little bit, and they actually perform better in a relay. It's quite an amazing psychology how that works. So I think it is a true reflection that the relay is slightly different. It doesn't follow the statistics exactly. But remember, Glago just on Sunday in the last race, she only hit 1 target out of 5 in her final stand shooting, and that must be slightly worrying. If you do make a big error like that, you come into your next race maybe with just a little bit of a negative thought in the back of your mind.
Just 3 shoots to go then, and it is Russia who are in control at the moment, but by a margin of less than 20 seconds. It is not that significant. 2 shots at the very most, so if Ishmaratova can hit 4 out of 5 and then get the 5th one with the first spare round, she should hold on to the lead. Ishtat just settling. Skied in very, very fast indeed. Could be a factor.
Ishtat will shoot fast, very fast.
Not only fast, she'll shoot well. Astonishing stuff. Ishtat goes from third to first in the space of 2 kilometres, and she has really put some pressure on the veteran of this leading three. Well, Ishmaradova proves she's up to it. She's cleared that 5th one at the first attempt. Whoa, excellent. Martina Glago keeps Germany in the game. This one is going down to the wire. It's going to the last leg. And who is it going to be? Zaitseva, Wilhelm Poiré lined up. They've got just under 6 minutes before they set off on their 6-kilometre leg. Well, Norway, Russia, Germany, the order changing all the time. Congratulations there to Martina Glago. That was one of the most pressurised situations we've seen her in this season. She was up to it.
Well, she certainly put the ghost from Sunday to rest. I did say she missed 4 out of 5 in one of her stands in the pursuit, but perfect today. Brilliant performance. Anna Bogali looked very tense. Always rests the rifle on her fingertips, which for me it never quite looks as stable as when you grab hold either side with your fingers of the rifle stock. But Ishtat, that was an incredibly fast shooting performance.
Maybe Bagali's got a metal insert in the glove that just gives her some stability. You allowed to do that?
You're not allowed to do that.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Just checking.
Well, it is slightly easier when we see there with Dong the raised wooden part, if you like. It's 3 centimetres deeper than it used to be, and that does allow you more support.
That allows you to build a rifle that fits your body shape, and I think that's important, because if you've got very narrow hips or very short upper arms, you've got no chance of getting the support. Good shooting in the end from Dong of China, and 4th, if they can stay in 4th, that would be their best performance of the season so far. 8th in the first round in Biatlon, 6th in Oberhof last week. Getting better each time they come out on the track. Well, what is the margin between Norway and Russia? Good ski from Ishtat on the last leg. Question is, how much has she got left in the tank? Here come Russia with Svetlana Ishmaradova. She's lost some ground, but on the whole, an impressive performance. Her first shoot was absolutely immaculate. I don't think Ishmaradova is skiing as well as she was at the beginning of the year. I think that she was too good too soon.
Quite possibly. The form does seem to have dropped off a little bit at this part of the season.
Further down the field, Team 11 nearest the camera, the Polish team with Paniquia on the firing point. The French alongside them, just to remind you, the French pretty much with a new team. Florence Bavrel-Robert, the most experienced, went first. Jacquin, Annalisa Bailly, not Sandrine Bailly, going on leg 3. And then Delphine Pareto is going to be taking the last leg for the French. So an experimental team, and it is not going that well for Annalisa. Penalty loops.
It's a tough experience to be missing so many. Although the graphics are not true, she hasn't. She has 1 spare round left. Two penalty loops, that is punishing.
Back to the front of the race where the action is taking place, and a bit of a gap opening up. Martina Glago looking very, very tired, Mike. Usually she would have been able to stay with the likes of Gromar Ishtat, but not on this occasion. Look how low her body is, how much flexion there is in the hip. It never makes me feel comfortable. I'm sure if she could straighten the body, she'd have a more efficient style, but I do appreciate just how steep that hill is.
It is very steep. Yeah, I think